The Second World War, a conflict that defined the 20th century, did not begin in a vacuum. Its seeds were sown in the unresolved bitterness and punitive measures of its predecessor, the Great War, and the subsequent Treaty of Versailles in 1919. This treaty, intended to ensure lasting peace, instead fostered deep resentment in Germany, which was forced to accept full blame, pay crippling reparations, and suffer severe territorial and military restrictions. This humiliation was a fertile ground for extremist ideologies. The 1920s and 1930s saw the rise of aggressive, expansionist, and totalitarian regimes across Europe and Asia. In Italy, Benito Mussolini's fascist movement seized power. In Japan, a militaristic, expansionist government driven by resource needs grew dominant. But the most destructive force emerged in Germany: Adolf Hitler and his National Socialist Nazi Party, promising national revival, territorial expansion, and repudiation of the Versailles shame. The global economic catastrophe of the Great Depression, beginning in 1929, served as a catalyst, exacerbating the instability. In Germany, mass unemployment and poverty fueled public support for Hitler's radical solutions, which included massive rearmament, a direct violation of the Treaty of Versailles, to stimulate the economy and restore national pride. The democratic nations, preoccupied with their own economic crises, were largely slow and hesitant to challenge these blatant breaches of the post-war order. By the mid-1930s, the aggressive powers began formalizing their alliances. Germany and Italy, sharing ideological similarities, formed the Rome-Berlin Axis. Japan, pursuing dominance in East Asia, joined them in the Anti-Comintern Pact, later evolving into the full-fledged alliance of the Axis powers. This collective of nations explicitly challenged the established international order, viewing expansion and conquest as essential for their national destinies. The first major act of aggression came not in Europe, but in Asia. In 1931, Japan invaded and occupied Manchuria, a resource-rich region of China, establishing the puppet state of Manchukuo. The League of Nations condemned the action, but took no effective steps to intervene, highlighting the organization's weakness and setting a dangerous precedent. Aggression would not be met with meaningful resistance. In Europe, Hitler began testing the resolve of the former Allied powers. In 1936, German forces remilitarized the Rhineland, a region bordering France that had been designated a demilitarized zone by the Treaty of Versailles. This move was a bluff. The German army was not yet strong enough to repel a French counterattack. Yet neither France nor Britain acted decisively, viewing the region as Germany's backyard. The success of this gamble emboldened Hitler further. From 1936 to 1939, the Spanish Civil War became a proving ground for the coming global conflict. Germany and Italy actively supported the nationalist forces of General Francisco Franco with men, material, and air power. The intervention provided the German Luftwaffe with vital combat experience and allowed the testing of new tactics, such as the destructive Blitzkrieg concept, which would soon be unleashed upon Europe.
Hitler's next move was the Anschluss, annexation of Austria, in March 1938. Claiming the right to unite all German-speaking people, Hitler marched his troops into Austria without any meaningful international opposition. The enthusiastic reception by many Austrians seemed to validate his actions to the world. Britain and France, still clinging to the policy of appeasement, did nothing, hoping to avoid war by satisfying what they perceived as Hitler's limited demands. The final, most blatant act of appeasement concerned Czechoslovakia. Hitler demanded the Sudetenland, a region of Czechoslovakia with a majority German population. In September 1938, the leaders of Britain, Neville Chamberlain, and France met with Hitler and Mussolini in Munich. Without consulting the Czechs, They agreed to cede the Sudetenland to Germany. Chamberlain returned to London, famously declaring he had secured peace for our time. This agreement, a complete betrayal of Czechoslovakia, was the zenith of appeasement. The illusion of a satisfied Hitler was shattered 6 months later. In March 1939, German forces occupied the remainder of Czechoslovakia, violating the very agreement that Chamberlain had championed. This act demonstrated Hitler's true goal was not merely the unification of German people, but outright conquest. It was a turning point. Britain and France finally recognized that Hitler could not be trusted and that war was inevitable. They issued a guarantee of support to Poland, Hitler's next likely target. The final shocking maneuver before the war was the signing of the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact in August 1939, a non-aggression agreement between arch-enemies, Nazi Germany, and the Soviet Union. This secret agreement included a crucial protocol, the division of Eastern Europe into German and Soviet spheres of influence, with Poland to be partitioned between them. This pact eliminated the threat of a two-front war for Hitler and gave him the green light to invade Poland. At 4:45 a.m. on September 1, 1939, German forces launched a massive, coordinated attack on Poland. This was the debut of the Blitzkrieg strategy. Fast-moving armored divisions, panzer, mechanized infantry, and overwhelming air support, designed to shatter enemy defenses before they could mobilize. The Polish army, largely reliant on traditional tactics, was quickly overwhelmed by the speed and scale of the attack. The attack on Poland forced Britain and France to honor their treaty obligations. On September 3, 1939, British Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain reluctantly announced that Britain was at war with Germany. France followed suit. Despite the declarations, their initial military response was minimal, a period known as the Phony War, as they were unprepared for the speed of the Blitzkrieg and the new reality of motorized warfare. While the German army pushed from the west, the Soviet Union, as secretly agreed, invaded Poland from the east on September 17th. With their nation besieged from both sides by vastly superior powers, Polish resistance was doomed. The country was quickly conquered and divided between the two totalitarian powers. The invasion of Poland and the declarations of war that followed marked the formal, unequivocal start of the Second World War. The events of 1931 to 1939 reveal that the war was not a sudden explosion, but a catastrophe that unfolded over years. It was fueled by the punitive Peace of Versailles, the aggressive ambition of totalitarian leaders, the weakness of international institutions, and the catastrophic failure of the policy of appeasement. By the close of 1939, Europe was engulfed in conflict, and the stage was set for a global war far more destructive than its predecessor, a war that would ultimately redefine humanity's understanding of atrocity and global power.